Hey there, hope you are doing well. Welcome to this video tutorial on cluster computing. So sit back and enjoy. Parallel and distributed computing are a staple of modern applications. The computing power required by applications is increasing at a tremendous rate. Hence, the search has therefore been towards devising even faster, even more powerful computer systems to help tackle more and more complex problems. In addition, parallel applications have become more and more complex with increasing processing power needs, induced essentially by the progress registered in many fields, for example, telecommunication, data mining, etc. In short, we can say that trend is towards high performance computing system. The usage of clusters of computer is perhaps one of the most promising means by which we can bridge the gap between our needs and the available resources. We need to leverage multiple cores for multiple machines to speed up applications or to run them at a large scale. The infrastructure for crawling the web and responding to search queries are not single-threaded programs running on someone's laptop, but rather collections of services that communicate and interact with one another. So, cluster is a collection of interconnected and loosely coupled standalone computers working together as a single integrated computing resource, with one master and as many slave nodes interacting via a dedicated network interface. It seems as a single large system from the topmost application layer. So the question may arise, why clusters are designed and built when perfectly good commercial supercomputers are available in the market? The answer is that the latter is expensive. Clusters are surprisingly powerful, even though the supercomputer has come to play a larger role in business applications. In areas from data mining to fault-tolerant performance, clustering technology has become increasingly important. Many who have a need to harness supercomputing power don't buy supercomputers because they can't afford them. Also, it is impossible to upgrade them. Clusters, on the other hand, are cheap, an easy way to take off-the-shelf components and combine them into a single supercomputer. In some areas of research, clusters are actually faster than commercial supercomputers. Clusters also have the distinct advantage in that they are simple to build using components available from hundreds of sources. We don't even have to use new equipment to build a cluster. Horizontal scaling is better alternative to vertical scaling is one of the advantages in uh, cluster computing. Horizontal scaling is actually adding machines to our main systems when required in order to fulfill our server's requirement. And vertical scaling is upgrading our existing servers. So yeah, upgrading your existing servers with the new expensive one is a lot of job and it is expensive. So like reusability of resources in there in cluster computing. Whenever you wish, depending on the load on your servers, you can remove systems and use them for other purposes. Fault tolerance when working with a single system setup, if it goes down, the complete server goes down. But when working with a cluster, going down of one of the machines doesn't impact the system as a whole. And again, high availability because of multi copies of same data stored across the cluster. The cluster's computing provides you with high availability. So these are some of the advantages of cluster computing. The first one being reduced cost, of course. The price of off-the-shelf consumer desktops has gone down in recent years, and this drop in price has corresponded with a vast increase in their processing power and performance. The average desktop PC today is many times more powerful than the first mainframe computers. So cluster computing has proven to be cost effective and providing the same performance as a mainframe supercomputer would, but in cheaper price. The second advantage is processing power. So the parallel processing power of a high performance cluster in many cases prove more cost effective than a mainframe with similar power. This reduced price per unit of power enables enterprises to get a greater return of their investment from it. Third, scalability. Perhaps the greatest advantage of the greatest advantage of computer clusters is scalability they offer. While mainframe computers have a fixed processing capacity, computer clusters can be easily expanded as requirements change by adding additional nodes to the network. The fourth advantage of cluster computing: when a mainframe computer fails, the entire system fails. Here in cluster computing, single component failure is mitigated by redundant machines taking over the processing uninterrupted. This type of redundancy is lacking in mainframe systems. So now the types of clusters we are having currently. As the clusters are extensively utilized in correspondence to the complexity of the information to manage content and the anticipated operating speed. Many of the applications that anticipate high availability without a reduction in downtime employ the scenarios of cluster computing. The types of cluster computing, the types of cluster computing are as like you can see: load balancing, high availability cluster, high performance cluster, and then last one, a combination of high availability and load balancing. So the first one, cluster load balancing. Load balancing clusters are employed in the situations of augmented network and internet utilization, and these clusters perform as the fundamental factor. This type of clustering technique offers the benefits of increased network capacity and enhanced performance. Hence, the entire nodes stay as cohesive with all the instance where the entire node objects are completely attentive of the request those are present in the network. All the nodes will not operate in a single process, whereas they readdress the requests individually as they arrive depending on the scheduler or algorithm. The other crucial element on the load balancing technique is scalability, where this feature is accomplished when every server is totally employed. Along with the servers in load balancing, which have a similar capacity in client reaction, many of the concerns are created as many of the requests might be addressed by these servers, those might be in confusion. So load balancing creates balance for the users and servers. Even load balancing allocates incoming requests or traffic for its resources from the connected computers which operate similar programs and those developed as a cluster. When a node failure occurs, and the requests are again allocated across the available nodes. Then we have high availability clusters. These are also termed as failover clusters. Computers so often face failure issues, so high availability comes in line with the augmenting dependency of computers, as computers hold crucial responsibility in many of the organizations and applications. In this approach, redundant computer systems are utilized in the situation of any component malfunction. So when there is a single point malfunction, the system seems to be completely reliable as the network has redundant cluster elements. Through the element Through the implementation of high availability clusters, systems can go with extended functionality and provides consistent computing services like complicated databases, business activities, customer services like e-websites, and network file distribution. Third, we have high performance clusters. This networking approach utilizes supercomputers to resolve complex computational problems. Along with the management of I/O-dependent applications like web services, high-performance clusters are deployed in computational models of climate and in-vehicle breakdowns. More tightly connected computer clusters are developed for work that might consider supercomputing. Okay, so and the last one is the combination of first two, high availability plus load balancing. This integrated solution provides extended performance, showing no complicated breakdowns. The combined the combined performance of two clustering techniques provides an ideal solution for the network applications and for ISPs too. Few of the features of this integrated technique are as follows: enhanced level of service quality for conventional network activities. It offers an extensively scalable architecture context. And the last one, transparent assimilation for standalone functionalities and non-clustered collectively in a single virtual system. So these are some of the open source projects implementing cluster computing. The first one, Apache Spark. So Apache Spark is an open source distributed general purpose cluster computing framework. Spark provides an interface for programming entire clusters with implicit data parallelism and fault tolerance. It is the Apache's most active project as of now. The next one, Apache Thales. So the Apache Thales project is aimed at building an application framework which allows for a complex directed acyclic graph of tasks for processing data. It is currently built atop Apache Hadoop Yarn, which stands for yet another resource negotiator. And this is the only difference between Apache Spark and Thales. That Thales only runs on top of Yarn, and this, but at the same time, Spark can run standalone too. So what Thales is offering are like expressive data flow definition APIs, flexible input processor output runtime model, data type agnostic, simplified deployment, performance gains over MapReduce, optimal resource management, plan reconfiguration at runtime, and dynamic physical data flow decisions. Now, Ray. So, Ray is a cluster computing platform for Python which enables our multiprocess code to run on cores of n number of machines in a cluster. So, it just extends multiprocessing from one system to multiprocessing over a cluster. So, what is Spark? Apache Spark is a powerful unified analytics engine for large-scale distributed data processing and machine learning. On top of Spark Core, data processing engine are libraries for SQL, machine learning, graph computation, and stream processing. These libraries can be used together in many stages in modern data pipelines and allow for code reuse across batch, interactive, and streaming applications. Spark is useful for ETL processing, analytics, and machine learning workloads, and for batch and interactive processing of SQL queries, machine learning inferences, and artificial intelligence applications. So, of course, it is a cluster computing platform. It is an extension of MapReduce. In MapReduce platform, the output of map and reduce phase are stored on disk each time, which results in extra overhead of read-write from disk. Spark gets rid of this overhead by introducing in-memory computation. So Spark proves to be faster than the MapReduce. And of course, it is open source, as you all know. So this is the software stack for Apache Spark. Below three blocks are Spark deployment strategies. There are three ways of Spark deployment. The first one being standalone. Spark standalone deployment means Spark occupies a place on top of HDFS, which stands for Hadoop Distributed File System, and space is allocated for HDFS explicitly. Here, Spark and MapReduce will run side by side to cover all Spark jobs on cluster. The second one, Hadoop Yarn. Hadoop Yarn deployment means simply Spark runs on Yarn without any pre-installation or root access required. It helps to integrate Spark into Hadoop ecosystem or Hadoop stack. It allows other components to run on top of stack. The last one, Mesos. So Mesos is also a cluster manager like Yarn. When using Mesos, the Mesos master replaces the Spark master as the cluster manager. So now, the main components of Spark. The first one being Spark Core. So Spark Core is the underlying general execution engine for Spark platform that all other functionality is built upon. It provides in-memory computing and referencing datasets in external storage systems. It does this with the help of something called RDDs, which stands for Resilient Distributed Dataset. So RDD is a fundamental data structure of Spark. It is an immutable distributed collection of objects. Each dataset in RDD is divided into logical partitions which may be computed on different nodes of the cluster. RDDs can contain any type of Python, Java, or Scala objects, including user-defined classes. Spark SQL. So Spark SQL is a component on top of Spark Core that introduces a new data abstraction called Schema RDD, which provides support for structured and semi-structured data. Then we have Spark Streaming. Spark Streaming leverages Spark Core's fast scheduling capability to perform streaming analytics. It ingests data in mini batches and performs RDD resilient distributed datasets transformation on those mini batches of data. Then we have a machine learning library MLib. MLib is a distributed machine learning framework about Spark because of the distributed memory-based Spark architecture. It is according to benchmarks done by the MLib developers against the alternating least squares ALS implementations. Spark MLib is 9 times as fast as the Hadoop disk-based version of Apache Mahout, which is also a machine learning implementation on top of Hadoop. Finally, GraphX for graph processing. So GraphX is a distributed graph processing framework on top of Spark. It implements an API for expressing graph computation that can model the user-defined graphs by using Pregel Abstraction API. It also provides an optimized runtime for the abstraction. So these are the stable Spark versions. Spark 2.0 actually brought so many new changes to the platform. Discussing them is like out of scope for this video, but you can always explore it from Spark's official documentation on its website. So these are the three models for Spark installation, or one can say stages of application development on top of Spark. Initially, you write a distributed code and run from within the Eclipse or any editor of your choice and run it in a multi-threaded way. Then if all goes good, you can run master and worker in the same system as two separate JVM processes. That is in a pseudo-distributed way. Finally, you deploy the code or the cluster with master and workers running on separate machines within the cluster. So this was about Apache Spark. Now moving to Ray cluster. So Ray is an open source project for parallel and distributed Python, and it is considered as the simplest tool for implementing multiprocessing over a cluster. So traditional programming relies on two uh, basic concepts like functions and classes. Using these building blocks, programming languages allow us to build countless applications. However, when we migrate our applications to the distributed setting, the concepts typically change. On one end of the spectrum, we have tools like OpenMPI, Python multiprocessing, and ZeroMQ, which provide low-level primitives for sending and receiving messages. These tools are very powerful, but they provide a different abstraction, so single-threaded applications must be rewritten from scratch to use them. On the other hand of the spectrum, we have domain-specific tools like TensorFlow for model training, Spark for data processing and SQL, and Flink for stream processing. These tools provide higher-level abstractions like neural networks, datasets, and streams. However, because they differ from the abstractions used for serial programming, applications again must be rewritten from scratch to leverage them. Ray occupies a unique middle ground. Instead of introducing new concepts, Ray takes the existing concepts of functions and classes and translate them to the distributed settings as tasks and actors. This API choice allows serial applications to be parallelized without major modification. In short, you don't have to write again from scratch. Rather, you just have to use Ray multiprocessing library instead of the native library which you may be using before. So Ray is as simple as that. Few modifications to your existing code and you are done. Well, moving to the conclusion, cluster computing provides a relatively inexpensive and unconventional approach in tackling large-scale computation problems when compared to the large server or mainframe computer solutions. Modernized advancements in both the hardware and software technologies are probable to allow cluster computing to nurture further and come up with more tools like one we discussed. So we have reached the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice day.